Hi guys, I thought I would talk a little bit more about some of the mods that I've just made to set the bike up for the street. The last one was more about what I had done to make it more off-road worthy or off-road ready. Here I'm setting it up for the big tour I've got coming, which is going to be predominantly asphalt. There's going to be some gravel involved, depending on if I can get up the Dempster Highway or not. We'll see. It's COVID restrictions depending, but there's definitely going to be mostly asphalt, little bit of gravel or dirt road. So anyways, the big change, the tires. So I went from the Kenda big blocks to the Michelin Anarchy Adventures. It's the first time I've had this tire on the bike. I've had the Metzler Torrance on before. That's what I bought the bike with, and that's the stock tire, and that was very nice. This is a similar tire in terms of the tread. I'm not going to really do a review of the tire, but the reason why I chose it was just it's going to be a lot smoother on the highway, and it does have really good longevity because, as you probably know, it's a dual compound rubber, so there's a hard strip down the middle and softer on the sides. And there's more technology going on there as well, but that's a nice rounded profile. I took the first ride on it yesterday and it was pretty sweet. Just going through the twisties, nice and smooth. So I think I will probably get the tires professionally balanced. I tried to do it myself using jack stands. Not ideal. I did feel a little bit of bounce, so I think I'll probably just take those in and get them to adjust these spoke wheel weights. So that's the big change. This is like an 80-20 tire. The other big change I made last week was on the counter sprocket at the front here. I went from a 15 tooth sprocket back to the stock 16-inch sprocket. The 15 was really nice for off-roading because it puts the revs up in the correct range for the kinds of speeds that you're doing on the trails, and you get lots of torque also in the lower gears. But having changed it back to the stock, I really did enjoy it on the highway. Yesterday, I've got roll on at 120, which is pretty sweet, and it just feels well. The other nice thing is the RPMs. When I'm sitting at 110 kilometers an hour, we're in Canada here, so everything's kilometers, which is a comfortable speed, at least I find. I mean, the speed limit is 100, so 110 is a comfortable speed, and it puts the RPMs right in the sweet spot of 4,600 RPMs. Apparently that's what the engine is designed to go at its optimum, 4,600. And then even if I go up to 120, which would be about 70 miles an hour, it's still at 5,000 RPM. So it's not over revving, and that's going to improve the fuel economy, and it'll help with the oil consumption as well. By the way, this bike, I was a little worried about the oil consumption on it, knowing I'm going on such a long tour. So I was monitoring it. So far this year, I've put about 7,000, well, actually when I checked, I put about 6,500 kilometers on the bike and used 750 milliliters of oil. So that's a little over 1 milliliter per 100 kilometers, if I've done my maths right. Anyways, it's pretty good. Especially since, when I was asking at the BMW service counter about oil consumption, I was told, even the brand new 1200 or 1250 GSAs, apparently they burn like a liter for every 1,000 kilometers, which I find hard to believe. But so yeah, that's the big thing about this bike that I didn't mention in the last segment on off-roading, is that it's an extremely popular bike. There's a huge following, and the main reason is the engine. The engine is just rock solid, made in Austria, the Rotax engine, with this weird dry sump system, which is kind of a pain in the butt to check the oil level, but keeps it really well lubricated. These bikes just do not burn oil. So this has got now 107,000 kilometers on it. It's still not burning all that much oil, and certainly the going back to the stock gearing where, you know, the RPMs are going to come down a little bit, that's going to help a lot. Yeah, and by the way, I read somewhere that the engine was designed in the aerospace industry. It was designed for propeller-driven props and has an extremely long service interval. So yeah, it's definitely, and there's guys that have put scopes down in the cylinder at, you know, 100,000 kilometers, and there's like no carbon in there. So yeah, the engine's solid. So the tires, the stock gearing. What else have I done? Well, yeah, you can see I added this wind deflector on up here. That's to help with the highway speeds. This is a piece of crap. This is it's kind of weird. I tried it used to be called the MRA X-Creen, X-CREEN, X-Creen. I tried it as a solution for the turbulence coming off the windshield. Was kind of underwhelmed. Decided to go a different route and sent that back. Then I started having regrets when I went on a long tour a couple of years ago, and then I got this imitation one off of eBay, and it just doesn't hold up. Once you get up to 110 kilometers an hour, it just folds. Even though these are all locked in place, it folds up. But when I was going 120 on the highway yesterday, and there's this incredible turbulence, this incredible wind noise, if I just held it like this with my hand, it was like whisper quiet. So I've decided just to sort of bite the bullet, and I bought the proper brand name one. Now, I didn't go with the X-Creen because I couldn't find it. I think it might be discontinued or something, so I'm going with the Puge. Similar idea, wind deflector, and we'll try that, and I think that's going to certainly help a lot with the turbulence. Again, because of the angle of this fairing, the windscreen, no matter what height you do, it's still all angling straight back onto your helmet. You know, at lower speeds, like lower than 100 and say lower than 100, it's great. Your helmet's, at least for me, I'm 6 feet, helmet is up in clean air. But once you get up around 110 and certainly 120, you get bad turbulence. And I have a 19-inch screen, which I put on last week, but you know what? It just doesn't fit anymore. Now, I don't have the stock mirrors anymore, but I don't even know how it ever fit at one time. I just could not do anywhere near full lock with that 19-inch screen on. I don't know, maybe I have a vague memory that actually it always hit on the windscreen a little bit. You can get mirror extenders from National Cycle that would move the mirrors out a little bit, but you know what? They're $60 for 2 pieces of metal. Couldn't do it, and so anyways, this is the solution I'm going to try, the Puge wind deflector, and hopefully that will solve the issues of turbulence on the highway. The other thing I'm going to do, I haven't done yet, is I'm going to increase the oil in the forks. I mentioned that I have the Rycor valves in there, and next week I'm going to drain the oil, and I'm going to put in a little bit more oil. I decreased the oil quantity or volume based on Dave Moss's video talking about oil levels in forks, and saying, you know, like many things on a bike, the recommendations are just a starting point. You have to customize, and like I said, I'm a pretty light guy compared to most people, so I went with a little bit less oil, and I think I'm going to just go back to the stock level, stock volume, because I'm going to have my wife on the back and the bike will be fully loaded. So when I'm braking, I just want to prevent that fork dive. So the recommended oil is 600 milliliters if you do a change. It's a bit more if you do a complete rebuild of the forks, but 600 mil. And I found somewhere, maybe it was at the Racetech site, if you put your oil in by height, it's 120 millimeters from the top of the tube if you take the forks right off and stand them upright. So anyways, I'm going to go back to that for the oil, and then just use the 5-weight oil that's recommended by Rycor. So that'll be the other big change in terms of the suspension. As you can see, I've put my panniers on. I love the hard cases. I know it's a huge controversial issue today, soft panniers versus hard panniers. There are pros and cons of both. I'm not doing a round the world trip that involves some heavy off-roading where you'd want the soft panniers because they're a little bit more, well, the weight is distributed a little bit better, and there's also less chance of catching your foot underneath the hard case. The nice thing I like about these is that they're lockable, so I can put all my valuables in there, and I can lock it up and leave the bike if I have to with confidence. I've also taken them off and used them as a seat at the camp, at the fireside or at trackside, so that's nice as well. And I've just bought also, this is not really a mod for the bike, but I've also just bought a pannier topper from Endurostan, which will be nice. It'll go right on there. What else? I talked at all about any of this setup up here, so maybe I should talk a little bit about my navigation, because this has been a long process, a long journey, to use the most overused word today. So I've tried various setups. Let me just start first of all with the mount. This is the Ram quick grip mount. I started with the X frame, which is great, except often the buttons will end up, the arms of that will end up pressing on your buttons. Not so much for this phone, but I tried a different phone, the Kyoka Duraforce phone, and it's like a military grade phone, and I tried that as a dedicated GPS, and it worked okay, but again, that one had a lot more buttons on it, and the X grip was interfering with those buttons. So I found this one works well, and the nice thing is that you do have adjustment here on the arms and where you want to put it. So I've put it here where it's not going to interfere with my volume buttons. And I've just got an SAE lead here for the battery, and then I just stick in one of these adapters. Now, when this is a waterproof phone or water resistant phone, it's good up to something like 1 meter or something underwater, so it's fine in the rain, but when the port detects moisture, it shuts down. So the way I got around that is I've siliconed in a little magnetic adapter, and that's waterproof, and then I just connect it that way, and that kind of solves the charging issue. And then I use usually Osmond on that, because you can work offline with that, and you can load GPX tracks, which are nice. But you know, again, I won't get into that. That's really a personal choice, and I think I've done actually a blog about that. You know, people use Maps.me or Locus Maps Pro. Anyways, my chosen one is Osmond Plus. But of course, Google Maps, or what they just call Maps today, is also really handy, because you can look up an address in Chrome and then just click, you know, the button for navigate there, and it loads in Maps. So that makes it really convenient. And then I bought this recently from Riley at Awesome Players. He was upgrading and he sold me that, and that's been really great. It's really reliable in terms of satellite fixation. The problem with my phone is that often it drops the satellite, and that can be really frustrating. I get this message, satellite signal lost. Whereas this one, it stays fixed, and there's no charging issues at all, because it's part of this rugged mount. And that's, you know, that's really my backup more than anything, but at least peace of mind if I'm going somewhere way out in the bush, I said, I plan to go up to Tuktoyaktuk, so that's going to be well out of satellite range, and I'm sure that this will be very handy. And then the other mod that I've done this year is with this controller. This is called the Carpe Iter controller. Where is it out of? Czech Republic, I believe. And you've got a toggle switch here, and you've got you can zoom in and zoom out, so you can navigate through your maps that way. And then in combination with drive mode in here, that's a nice combo. I don't think it's connected at the moment, but whoops, I don't know why it wants to. It doesn't. I don't want weather. Thank you very much. It has a nice interface that kind of takes over the general interface of your phone, and you can navigate through apps, you can navigate through media. It shows your speed as you're riding, and all sorts of other information. Maybe I'll do a vlog about the different GPS apps that I use on this at a later time. But the combination of the controller here, so that I'm not, messing around with my fingers while I'm riding, I can just control everything with the toggle or the zoom buttons, including media. That's nice because I just keep my hands on the handlebars. And that, as I said, that sort of takes care of the navigation. That's been my biggest challenge, I would say, touring, is the navigation. I struggled a lot with having the phone constantly drain. As soon as you get into your first wet weather, it doesn't take long for a GPS to drain a phone, and then I'm trying to charge the phone off of the bike even when it's not running, which is not great, and that's how I ended up with the battery issues as well. So I hope I have that solved. We'll see. It's just it's frustrating, and it's actually unsafe actually if you don't have your navigation system down, because then you don't know where you're going, and that's a vulnerable situation. You're messing around not only with a GPS, but also just in terms of distracted riding. So I'm really hoping that I've got the navigation aspect set up so that I can just ride and enjoy the ride and not have to worry about getting lost. The only other thing I might mention would be the little bags that you see mounted on the bike. It's left over from yesterday. These are all my tools and my tubes and my levers, everything essential that I need for repairing the bike. And I tried mounting them for a long time vertically this way off of these racks, but the straps they run across the back, and it just dawned on me, what, why don't I just mount them horizontally like that? They're wet dry bags, so they don't have to be vertical, and it's just a lot more secure. And then I just got these little cheap 2-foot long cinch straps off of Amazon, just to be absolutely sure they're not going anywhere. But that's the Giant Loop. I forget the name of the particular bag. It's by Giant Loop, and those are nice, as I say, just for carrying. I've got a tool roll in there, got a set of sockets, and tubes in case I need that. So I just thought I'd talk also a little bit about the back of the bike here. You can see I've got 2 racks. These came with the bike from the previous owner. I really like these. This is for extra fuel. It fits the MSR 1-liter fuel canister really nicely, and I like it because usually I'll have one that is, sometimes when I go moto camping, I'll have one which is like white fuel, which burns a little cleaner in my stove, and then one's extra, regular unleaded gas. But if I'm going to be doing something like the Dempster Highway, I'd probably put 2 liters of gas in there. it's just nice for peace of mind if you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't know where the next gas station is. You've got an extra 2 liters, or with club rides sometimes they'll bring a liter, because inevitably somebody has not tanked up when they should have, and it's good to have a liter that you can give somebody. So those are nice mods. I don't know where they came from. I don't know their brand. What does it say here? Garrett's. G-E-R-R-I-E-T-S. It's the first time I've actually seen that. So Garrett's are those. And actually you can see I wrapped a little bit of foam around here because the bottle gets rattled around and it was risk of getting punctured. So I've just modded that rack a little bit, and I've added a bit of Velcro at the bottom, and I've added Velcro to the bottle because this bottom strap inevitably falls off and there's a risk the bottle's going to slide out the bottom, so I've added that just to make sure that stays on. And then the other mod to the back is my expensive custom mud guard here. The OEM guard, you probably know, it's the possum scraper that sits out here, and that's apparently a German regulation. You have to have a mud guard that is so many inches from the ground, and it comes off of the chain guard over on this side and the swing arm on here, and it comes out, and then there's this cup that sits here, and you know, it didn't last that long. Once I got into some serious off-roading, it just cracked and broke off, and so I just decided to, I glued it back a few times, and then eventually I just cut it right off. This is actually a boot rack from Walmart, and I just cut it to size, and this is, as you can see, it's a electrical cable clamp, and it just screws into the back of the license plate holder up here, and you know, that'll keep the mud off my wife's back, and it serves the purpose. So I just thought I'd mention one other change that I made here this week, and that's to change the brake lever height from the off-road position to the sitting position or street position. So I had in there a little adapter that screws into this hole here, made by Touratech, and it just creates a new stop. Right now this is the stop for the lever. See this little tab down here? That little tab there, that's the stop of the lever. You can see it hits. So what you got to do is you got to bend that out of the way, and then you put an adapter in here, and it rubs against the frame here and creates the new stop. And then obviously you got to change this, and you have to bleed your brakes because now you're changing the brake height. But when I went back to the street position, so I had to bend that tab back, change the I don't know what this is, like the clearance, and bleed the brakes, and I also had to modify down in here. You have to come around the front here, right here. This is the switch for the rear brake light. So you can hear the relay there clicking. So it's just a little piece of metal here that touches on a contact, and when you put the brake down, it lifts away from the contact and activates the switch. So that had to be adjusted as well, so that if you're changing the height, you obviously have to change that switch activation. So that's the other mod I did, and that's kind of nice, because I found that in the off-road position I was probably over braking with the rear, because when you're seated the pedal's quite high and it's just really easy to accidentally lock up the rear. So this will be a little bit more comfortable seated. And that's about it. I've been really happy with the bike. the best money I've spent. It's just provided me with a lot of joy. As I said, I've slowly modified the bike towards off-roading because I just discovered that I really enjoyed the challenge of off-roading as opposed to the challenge of riding fast on the street, which can be dangerous. I've just really enjoyed relatively, safe, low speed but challenging terrain, and that's been a lot of fun. But you know what? Riding the bike yesterday with back to pretty much the stock setup in terms of the tires and the gearing has reminded me that this bike really is designed for the road, and it is best on the road. It's just an absolute pleasure to ride. Aside from, it's a little bit vibey, as you would expect from a thumper. Sometimes I hear a parallel twin go by, just humming, and I think, it'd be nice to have a nice, quiet, smooth bike. But I don't mind it that much. It's a raw bike, and yeah, just in terms of the weighting, I can just lean and you have to counter steer, just lean into the corners, and it's obviously designed for the twisty roads of Bavaria and the mountains, and it's just a lot of fun and really easy to ride. Very confidence inspiring, very safe, not a ton of power, and the clearance that was an issue off-roading now becomes an asset, as you're low to the ground, and the balance is a lot better. So yeah, it's a great bike, even though it's 16 years old, and here I am going to take it on like a 20,000 kilometer tour up into some pretty remote territory. But I've got confidence in the bike. I've got confidence in the BMW quality, and I'm changing a couple of things this week. I'm going to change the clutch plates because they're original clutch plates, put in new cork plates, and I'm going to change the water pump. Anybody who knows this bike knows that the water pump is the Achilles heel of it, and you can expect that to go every 55 to 65,000 kilometers. Other guys have had less luck. Mine went at about 65. Seems to be a failure, a built-in design failure point of the bike. I'm not too sure, but there's some plastic gears in there that get stripped. And I just thought, I've got, as I said, went on me at 65, and I've got 107 now, so it's gonna be due to go sometime during the tour. So I thought, you know what, I'll just preemptively change that water pump. So I'm gonna change the clutch and the water pump. And other than that, I'm confident in the bike, even though it's 16 years old. And I wouldn't say that about a 16-year-old car or too many other vehicles. So we'll see. I hope I'm not jinxing myself. We'll see how things go. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've had the bike now for 6 years, so I've tried a lot of different things, but these are the mods that have worked well for me. Feel free to comment on this, send in your suggestions, what's worked for you. I'm happy to comment, and I'll reply. And if you've got a 650 GS, enjoy it.